the Constitution gives specific responsibility to the union. They cannot tell the state what to do, what not to do on a daily basis. That's against federalism. I would be opposed to that myself. You are elected by the people. There's a legislature there. They have the sovereignty. And in the subjects entrusted to the states under the Constitution, 7th schedule, the state is supreme. Now, the people who have joined after 2004, they will start retiring in another 10 years. Some may retire a little earlier because the average age of recruitment is very high now. Unfortunately, we keep on increasing the recruitment age. That's one of the fictions we create as if there are jobs. So until 35, you can join government, or until 40, you can join government. Maybe it's a tamasha. So some may retire even in the next few years. But from 2030 onwards, as new people retire, there is no additional burden on account of retirement on the exchequer, because already pension fund is there. But if they don't do it, if you go back to the old pension scheme, as in these cases unilaterally, despite a contract, because the ordinary people are not raising their voice, they are voiceless and they're weak. And the organized minority is very vocal and strong. The consequences are going to be devastating. Some states like Andhra Pradesh, there are data available. The debt will eventually go, it should be 20%, remember. In many states now it's 35-40%. It will eventually go up to 110% of GDP. GSTP for the state alone. Absolutely unsustainable. Already we are unsustainable. The committed expenditure, which is now 125% across the country for the states of their own revenues, will reach up to 215, 220, 230% of their own revenues. This is the single most danger to India's economic growth. India will be worse off than Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, other countries. It is the most important proximate danger to our growth project for the next 30-40 years. It's an imminent danger. But because a switchover actually benefits the parties politically, unless the rest of the people understand, there is a strong and vocal group saying, no, we will vote you out if you don't do it. And there is no immediate financial cost on the state, because that price you'll pay after 5-10 years. In a country where there is no tomorrow, all we want is life or death, survive today and get into power today, that 8-9 years later the state will collapse is not really engaging the attention of the parties and governments and even the media. I'm not an alarmist, I'm an optimist. But this is alarming. This is the gravest danger to India's future right now, staring us in the face. Can be easily addressed. Before that, just one word. Machiavelli long ago said, a reformer has an incredibly difficult task because he faces the certain enmity of the powerful and vocal few who know what is at stake because their self-interest is affected. And a reformer enjoys the uncertain, weak and lukewarm support of the voiceless and powerless many who do not really understand what is at stake. If you say a national pension system must continue, you must not go to OPS, the employees of government who are organized, who are vocal, they understand what is at stake for themselves at the cost of the country. And therefore they will fight and they will be your enemies. Whereas the people for whom we are fighting, the ordinary people, the taxpayers, the rickshaw puller, vegetable vendor, the taxi driver, the auto driver, the private sector teacher, or a factory employee, or a software worker, for them there are 1,000 things in life. This does not engage their attention. That is the challenge. But let me conclude. Luckily, our constitutional makers, Ambedkar and his colleagues, anticipated these problems of fiscal management in the country. Therefore, they made provisions in the constitution. A, there is no bankruptcy for a state in India. In a country like the US, a city can go bankrupt, a state can go bankrupt. But in India, there is only one bankruptcy, that is of the Indian Union. The ultimate guarantor of the financial integrity of India is the government of India, not the states. Keeping that in mind, the government of India is given specific role and responsibility. Under Article 293, every debt incurred by the state has to be approved by the government of India, precisely for this reason. And the government of India can and should impose conditions in the interest of the financial security of India while approving such a debt. And in extreme cases, Government of India can impose a financial emergency whereby all the financial powers of the states are taken away from the state, and to that extent we become unitary. We never enforce that provision. But basically, The tools are available. We have to make them work, and we must build a political consensus in the country. That will happen only if the tax-paying people, they understand that their tax money in a substantial measure is going only for a small percentage of people. Out of the total working population of India, the government employees constitute 3.36%. 3.36%. The rest of the 96.6% people, workers, they are funding these 3.36% people's very high pensions, unfunded pensions in the future. This is just absurd. So what I would appeal to you is, there are 1,000 things that engage attention which are intellectually stimulating and exciting and fun. Somebody said, nothing concentrates the mind more beautifully than the knowledge that you only have 15 days to live. I'm not an alarmist. I'm a great optimist. Anybody who knows me or knows about my work, then know that I'm a great optimist. But let me assure you, we only have 15 days to live. If we don't set this right in the next few months and years, a couple of years, if we don't shore up the confidence of the political parties, if we don't build pressure from the tax-paying public about bringing sanity to this expenditure, there is very little that's left for India. We will lose at least a couple of generations. It's irretrievable, because once you commit legally to an old pension system, you can't come back. See, the free things to the ordinary poor people, A, they're small for individuals. B, they're going to the poor and large number of people. C, you can always withdraw. The government can change policy or say we don't have enough money. There's no legal liability. Whereas here, no such option is available. And when a contract is available, unilaterally, they are pledging our future tax revenue to take advantage of their their political needs, to meet their short-term political needs at the cost of the rest of the country. So we have to act together. And I'm not merely speaking. Right now, as I'm speaking, we are getting ready to mount a significant campaign, stating the facts in an honest manner, objective manner, in a balanced manner, arousing public opinion, so that the political parties realize that it's not merely the 1.8 crore employees of India in government. It is other 52 crore workers in India in various sectors that exist in this country, out of our 142.6 or 7 crore population. And you cannot simply yield to the pressure of a small number at the cost of the rest of the people, because they are waking up. And they will punish us if we do this. Unless that idea comes into the minds of the political parties, I'm afraid we will lose by default. So that's the reason why I thought I would raise this issue. It's not exciting, it's not fun, but it's vital. It's a matter of life or death for the country's future economy.
When we were putting up your talk, the social media banned it.
Banned it?
Yes. So how does one address or bring in awareness in this situation?
I don't know if they banned it, but they're somewhat lukewarm, because nobody wants to antagonize the powerful, organized, though small in number, the government employees in India. That's the bad. But ultimately, facts and truth, once I stated before you, every one word I said, I stand by them. It's verifiable. Every number I gave you is verifiable. Once the facts and truth and the global experience are known, and if you have some credibility and reach out to people, I'm certain you cannot suppress truth. And once people understand that India is an outlier and we are being taken for a ride and the future is going to be disastrous, I think enough people will rise, not in an aggressive or violent manner, but in a practical manner as enlightened citizens. And I am very optimistic that we can persuade the political system to do the right thing. It's not going to be easy. I have some experience in running campaigns and accomplishing changes in the country. It's not going to be easy, but we have to do it. And luckily, modern technology, what we're all doing, for instance, it makes it easy for us. Once the message is strong enough and evocative enough, it will go viral, and I'm sure millions will respond. But right now, we are too busy with the short-termism in this country. It's like a 2020 cricket match. We're viewing all public affairs as 2020 cricket match. We want to excite imagination in the short term, incite people, stimulate our senses without any sense, without any long-term perspective. So we have a bigger task, but that's a global task. The attention span is limited, but I think it's so fundamental that this will engage the attention if we really pool our resources together and speak the truth.
We'll address that. We need to have conversations on that. But next question, Srinivas Murthy garu. Does not the central government have the powers to limit the overall expenditure of the states, like the bank limit? Can not center put barriers to freebies doled out to many states?
Good question. As I mentioned, the Constitution gives specific responsibility to the Union. They cannot tell the state what to do, what not to do on a daily basis. That's against federalism. I would be opposed to that myself. You are elected by the people. There's a legislature there. They have the sovereignty. And in the subjects entrusted to the states under the Constitution, 7th schedule, the state is supreme. Without violating that, the union government has an obligation to ensure that there is fiscal prudence. The FRBM Act is one such thing. All states adopted that. And as I said, Article 293.3 says the union government will have to accrue every single debt incurred by the state. And that's a lever. And 293.4 says, while approving the loan, union government has the right to impose specific conditions. What to do, what not to do. As long as they're reasonable conditions. They're not indulging in party politics. And they're uniformly applied and fairly applied to all the states and to the states and the union. There cannot be any exception. Only thing is, because we never really applied them effectively, there's going to be resistance, because anything done today is seen as a party political issue. We are no longer looking at issues of India's future and our children's future. Everything is about this party versus that party, this leader versus that leader. In that climate, parties will feel a little constrained. For instance, if the union government does something, I'm in Telangana state, Telangana government will say, see, it's partisanship, they're trying to hurt us. Or some other state. This is inevitably going to happen. Those in power at the national level, whichever be the party, are UP earlier, NDA now, they're also politicians, please remember. They also have to go to people to get the vote. So it's very difficult to displease the short-term populist impulses. So if they alone are seen to be opponents of short-term populism, other fellows are champions of short-term populism, politically they have a price to pay. So when will they become strong if they're interested in doing what is right for the country? When we, the people, show sufficient voice, that if you are 1.8 crore employees of government, there are 5 crore Indians at least. We have about 12 crore taxpayers, income taxpayers alone in India. Out of the 12 crore, let us say at least half of them understand the issue and in some form are able to express their views. Then numbers speak. Because if I favor a small number because they're vocal, I will disfavor a large number and they're also getting vocal. Once that is there, two things happen. The governments that want to actually do the right thing but are a little scared, they will get voice because of public support. And two, the governments that are reckless will now fear the public opinion because they will lose. They only understand one thing, loss in elections. They'll be voted out or they'll not be given them. So once they feel that's what the people are thinking, I think that will change. So this is politics in the best sense of the term. So voters, the taxpayers must make themselves heard in a responsible way. And all of us together must create the fora for responsible and peaceful expression of the voters' views. And that's what some of us are getting ready. And we'd all not only welcome, but we plead with you. Let us see what we can do together. This is the nation's task. It's not about any organization or individual. This is the future of India. And I'm not saying these words loosely. I'm not given to easy sloganeering or hyperbole. This is real. This is substantive. And we all have to work together. It's a big issue. It's not easy.
Is it true that the central government is being more lenient with Andhra Pradesh with respect to these permissions to give out to support populist schemes versus Telangana? Or is it just...
That perception seems to be there among Telugu speaking people. No, unless we know the full facts, we cannot really state what is happening. If you talk to the finance minister or somebody else in government of India, they will tell you their version, what they are doing. If you go to some other states, they will tell you their version. So I would not like to make a judgment on that. I do not know what is happening. It's also that in some states, maybe the state government don't make too much noise and the government of India gives advice or a direction. They simply take it in the constitutional spirit and try to follow it, therefore don't make much noise. Some other states make everything political. So there are so many factors involved. That's why one of the key reasons, and the more important thing to me is not what the union government does, but whatever you do, can it be seen by the public in general to be absolutely above party politics and impartial? Because the question you raised is going to be raised every day. Anything they do, if you do it, you are damned. If you don't do it, you are damned. Therefore, what I am urging is create two bodies. One, something like a fiscal council. You can make the finance commission a permanent body. Right now, it's not a permanent body in India. Every 5 years, we appoint a new finance commission. Make it a permanent body and entrust them the responsibility of handling this Article 293, etc. So that the constitutional body in a transparent manner publicly does it. Not a government or government-controlled bureaucracy. And two, something like a congressional budget office in the United States or the Office of Budget Responsibility in Britain, something similar if we create, so that every single program or project of each government union or the state, the costing can be there in a transparent manner, professionally done. Recently in Britain, for instance, when this lady, the predecessor of Rishi Sunak, she was the Prime Minister for a short while, she refused to place it before the Office of Budget Responsibility. That's one of the key reasons why she lost public support. So the institutions became so important. Transparency in public funding. Any project you come out with, what is the cost? What's likely to happen? Unless people have information, Parliament has information, they don't allow things to go casually. Whereas in India, whatever they say, like a tuglak, you can just announce it disregarding the consequences and legal liabilities. Let there be somebody at least coming out with authentic facts, placing before the Parliament and the country, or the legislature in the country. So these two things, if we do, to a large extent, this partisanship or fear of partisanship will disappear.
Is there a petition put to the Supreme Court to address such issues?
About so-called freebies, it is there, but it will not go anywhere. I'm not saying it casually. I know for a fact it will not go anywhere. Our courts make bombastic statements. Some of these issues are beyond their province. It's not for a court to tell a government what to do, what not. Collecting taxes, spending money is the sovereign power entrusted by the people to elected government, period. There is no constitutional instrument available. At best, if they are wise, without bombastic statements, they can help generate the public debate a little bit more. That's all. Beyond that, they have no role. Our notion that courts are an answer to all of India's problems is a nonsensical notion. In fact, courts are a part of the problem. The pension system became a huge problem because of court pronouncements in 1980s and 90s. Thinking that they were doing a great socialist experiment, they said pension is a birthright and you must have pension which is indexed, and all these are made by the courts. They never bothered about the sustainability or global practices or funded or unfunded. They simply wanted to curry favor with a small number of organized sector workers. The Supreme Court is as much responsible to India's problems as anybody else. So I have no great faith that the courts are an answer to these complex challenges. It has to be done through political route and through existing constitutional means.
You said that if we could have some kind of a commission, finance commission, where everything is put transparent, both for the public and for the governments, can the court come out with that, or should it be constitutionally changed?
Finance Commission is already a constitutional body. It is about union state finances, transfer of resources to the states and so on and so forth. But for a long time, many economists have been urging that it must be made a permanent body. Right now, it's an ad hoc body. The Constitution only says you must have a finance commission appointed once in every 5 years. And it will report to the president the following things. And that's all that's happening. Now, they have the authority. They have the stature. They have the credibility. By and large, the whole nation trusts them. And they have the expertise. If that body is made permanent and they are given the task of enforcing the provisions of Article 293, 294, that will take away the partisanship. That is the idea. If that is not acceptable, there is another model, many people have recommended, a fiscal council. Again, another body, but again, the same stature and authority. But in general, my bias is in favor of existing credible and strong institutions being empowered adequately, rather than creating multiple new institutions. Because India does not have a great record of creating new and successful institutions. So what is working well, it is better to integrate the functions and get the best out of them, rather than ad hocly creating another body and then getting our cronies and our friends and retired officials into those positions. And they'll worry all the time about their car and their phone and their tune rather than the country. So my preference is an existing constitutional body which is respected and credible. Make it work better rather than create another 25 bodies.
Prasad Zurknin garu adigutunnaru. There are some states and central government also exceeding the fiscal deficit limit of 3% of GDP GSTP and deviating from FRMD guidelines. At least there is greater transparency from center now, and they are calling out for greater fiscal discipline. But some states continue undeterred with the impunity to borrow, creating SPVs, corporations to circumvent. That means the state borrowings are not reflected in their budget spendings and continue to borrow outside the budget, as you have already pointed out. Correct me if I'm wrong. Expect firmer action to deter from RBI Center SC. 2. Political expediencies are are taking precedence over ideologies and good governments. Worrisome indeed.
It's totally right. Prasad is totally right. SPVs are special purpose vehicles. So we're using that stratagem to borrow. The borrowing is by the state, repayment is by the state, but you're pretending it's not the state's debt burden. Just to try and conceal for some time. You can't conceal for all time. Try and conceal for some time the debt of the government. In some states, things have gone so far that the banks, the public sector banks, refuse to give information to the constitutional authority, CAG, about the state government's off-budget loans. Unthinkable. I never thought I would live to hear that in this country, but I have authoritative information. So, things are going pell-mell, but we can easily set it right. Luckily, our constitution makers are very wise. We always complain about what is wrong with our constitution. We forget the strengths of our constitution because of the 1935 Act and a lot of experience preceding the independence of the country, even in running a federal system. Our constitution makers anticipated these and created instruments. But again, let me reiterate two things. One, even if a government at the union level is going to be responsible, they are also political. To be able to do it credibly with our common consent is not going to be easy. And two, they also want to win elections. So for them to be seen as villains by the powerful organized groups is unrealistic. No, only a government that is willing to lose power is going to do that unless we stand up. Unless they can demonstrate that enough voters are saying we want it, it will be difficult for them. So don't expect them to commit political suicide. The second thing is union government also, while they are more responsible in general, whichever way the party in power, union government also is profligate. Because there is what is called structural deficit in union government. I don't want to go into technicalities, but just let me give you in a nutshell. Take the current year 23-24 budget figures. I'm simply giving you budget figures rounded off to the nearest 1,000 crores or something. 33 lakh plus crores is the anticipated revenue of the government of India this year. I think 33.3 lakh crores or whatever. 18.3 or 18.4 lakh crores is the transfers to states. 55 to 56, 57% are transfers to states in various forms. The constitutional devolution of the Finance Commission, grants in aid, the so-called centrally sponsored schemes, some statutory schemes like NREGA, etc. Together, they constitute 18 lakh plus crores. 10 lakh 23,000 crores is their interest burden. Their salary burden and pension burden is about 7 lakh 60,000 crores. Add these three heads, 36 lakh crores on a 33 lakh crore revenue without doing a thing. The Prime Minister or the government, whoever is in power, has not done a thing, right or wrong. Already there is a structural deficit, not even revenue deficit, structural deficit of 3 lakh crores. So there is a problem which cannot be overcome overnight. But with diligence, there are ways of doing it. That becomes too technical now for us. So it's not that Government of India is also completely off the mark. Who asked them to take on so many burdens? Who asked them to take up so many centrally sponsored schemes and state subjects? So there is a complex reality, but let me not complicate issues. Yeah, all this can be set right. We are lucky. We are lucky that we have a sound constitutional system with a bit of political will, which can be strengthened by some kind of public assertion, not by 140 crore people, but about 5-6 crore people at least. The organized sector, private employees and self-employed people, those who have enough understanding of issues, if they show some voice, that is enough. We have the political instruments available. We have constitutional instruments available.
Anju Rao, suppose we reach a point where the balance sheet shows collapse and the government mulls an urgent bailout. Who and what in the government will be liable? What are the sources of bailout? What will be the international repercussions of this on India with respect to structural adjust programs and the like? And finally, what will be the role of the RBI in such a crisis?
You don't have to imagine. Just look at Venezuela, once one of the richest countries among the developing countries and richest in Latin America. You look at Zimbabwe, look at current day in our own subcontinent, Pakistan and Sri Lanka, and their crisis is a relatively smaller crisis compared to what we're going to face tomorrow. So A, our credit rating will go fat. Therefore, international lending becomes either extremely expensive or it will simply stop. B, investments will come to a standstill. If the government finances are in serious disrepair and there's no realistic hope of improvement, no serious person will invest in that country. Therefore, all our possibilities of growth and employment generation and export promotion will all come to zero. Will all come to halt. C, you have no longer money to even take care of the basic services like rule of law, education, healthcare, infrastructure. The why we created the government, that basic purpose is no longer going to be even remotely served. It's all over. And therefore there will be chaos. And inflation will simply hit the roof. Germany, one of the reasons why Hitler came to power in Germany is the inflation after the First World War, after Treaty of Versailles. It became hyperinflation, Practically every day there was a 20%, 30% rise. And every year there was a 1,000%, 10,000% rise in prices. So let's not even go there. We can prevent it. We need to prevent it. It's a matter of life or death for the country, and a country which is now, after a long time, giving itself an opportunity of maybe we can catch up with China, though we're behind them. Next 20, 30 years could be important for us. If we now get into this mess because of one simple issue that we're not able to manage public finances, because not enough people have raised the voice, they didn't have the foresight, and that will be an unmitigated tragedy. It's 1/6 of humanity we're talking about. It will be a catastrophe for India, and in some measure, we're not China yet, so it will not affect the world to that extent. Definitely, it also has a significant impact in the world also. Because 1/6 of humanity, if it suffers dramatically, it will have consequences globally. And RBI's role is limited. RBI is a banker. RBI is the custodian of the currency. RBI's mandate is to contain inflation. RBI, in fact, I have been in touch with the RBI governor and others, revealing something confidentially stated to me that they have tried to put together a report, but they're worried about publishing it because they're trying to get the sources, authenticate the sources. They're not able to yet. But we have prepared a report. We have already put it in public domain. I'll make it much more public in the coming years. We're going to print it and then send to every MP in the country and to all the chief ministers and all the MLAs in the country and leave it in public domain. But the issue is, the oxygen of publicity is going to all irrelevant day-to-day issues. Look at news any day, on any given day, including today on your TV channels, etc. What is engaging public attention in the name of politics or public discourse? What is really important? There's always a huge gap. So how do you excite people about the really important things, but sometimes boring or sometimes a little difficult to understand? That's the challenge.